Okay. Mr. Jamil Ahmad, yes, you can come on stage.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning and good afternoon, Cairo. It's my pleasure to be here with you again today. So my name is Jamil Ahmad. I have an Arabic name, but I don't speak Arabic. So for this, I very kindly have my friend and good colleague Hassan, so please help me with the translations for the introduction. So what we're going to do today is I'm the Chief Investment Strategist at MENA at Alpari. I'm going to very briefly introduce this presentation as I'm doing now. Hassan will very kindly just introduce the introduction. The main text will be in English. I hope it's participative and I hope it's very interesting for all of you. I'm sure it is with global market volatility. And then Hassan will come back to the stage at the end to translate any questions that you might have in Arabic, because I understand that Arabic's the native tongue of the audience. And if you have questions, you're more than welcome to ask them me in English. You can ask them in Arabic. And Hassan will very kindly translate, please.
استثمار بالشرق الأوسط بشركة أوه أوكي كمل عاد أوكي اسمي جميل الأحمد، كبير استراتيجي الاستثمار بشركة ألباري في الشرق الأوسط. البرزنتيشن حتكون باللغة الإنجليزية. زميلي غسان حيقوم بترجمة المقدمة فقط والانترودكشن لألباري، وفي نهاية البرزنتيشن لو في أي أسئلة بالعربي ممكن حضراتكم تسألوا، وزميلي غسان حيترجم الأسئلة للغة العربية. خلال البرزنتيشن حتبقى mainly بالإنجليش.
Just one final thing. Of course, the slides will be in Arabic, so you're more than welcome to read them in Arabic as well. And then...
طبعا السلايدز على البرزنتيشن حتبقى باللغة العربية، فبتقدروا حضراتكم تشوفوا الكونتنت على الشاشة.
Okay, so first thing you might ask me is, what is Alpari, who are Alpari, and what we're going to do today. So Alpari was established in 1998. It's one of the oldest financial services in terms of investment brokers. It's one of the industry pioneers. Alpari's had more than 2 to 3 million clients globally, well established in Europe, United States, Asia. And we are in MENA today because we're very excited about the potential for the MENA region.
بداية من هي شركة ألباري. احنا بروكر موجود من سنة 1998، من أقدم البروكرز بالمنطقة. التأسيس كان بالولايات المتحدة، وقلنا برضو فروع في أوروبا، في بريطانيا وفي دبي جديد.
Now the MENA region is very dynamic, it's up and coming, it's got a young population, and there's a huge gap for scope of growth in the brokerage services sector. And we hope that with the expertise that we've built up through our nearly 3-decade experience, that we can help transfer some of that expertise to the MENA region.
طبعا بسبب الفجوة الموجودة ما بين السوق وما بين الإمكانيات المتاحة في التعليم، نتمنى ان احنا نملأ الفجوة دي عن طريق السيمينارز اللي احنا بنعملها والاكسبانشن اللي بتقوم فيه الشركة. عالم عالم الاستثمار ليس مخيفا كما يعتقد الكثير من الناس. الاستثمار ليس إلا مهارة، وهنا يأتي دور الباري في مساعدتك. تمييز التفوق بخبرتنا التي تفوق 24 عاما في السوق، ومكانتنا المرموقة كواحد من أفضل الوسطاء في تداول كواحد من أفضل الوسطاء في تداول الأصول المتعددة، ستساعدك في صقل هذه المهارة والحصول على المعلومات القيمة التي تدعمك في عالم الاستثمار. وعند استعداد المتداول ستقوم ألباري بتقديم الخدمات المالية والعروض للتمكن من تعظيم إيراداتك ونمو رأس المال الخاص بك بشكل مناسب. يسعدنا انضمامك لتصبح واحدا من 3 مليون متداول الذين اختاروا ألباري شريكهم في الاستثمار. نظرة مبسطة عن الاستثمار.
Okay, let's pick up the speed a little bit. So who has traded in financial markets before? Who trades and who invests? Okay, just a couple of you. A lot of new traders in the room. Anybody put your hands up if you're a new trader? Okay, so we have some experience in the room. Okay, next question. Who likes gold? Who's interested in gold? There we go. I know this is a popular asset in Egypt. So the gold prices have traded with more, I would say, difficulty as we've seen globally in 2022. One of the key questions that I'm always asked is, why is gold underperforming, considering the environment we are in? Why hasn't gold benefited more from what's happening, very sadly, around the events of Ukraine, other political conflicts, other geopolitical tensions that we continue to have, unfortunately, economic difficulties, inflation, and unfortunately the risks to the global economy just go on and go on. I could just talk for the next presentation about all of the disadvantages the global economy is facing. But in terms of gold price, we actually have not seen gold price do positively in 2022. We've seen the opposite. Now, this is because the world revolves around the US dollar. And as we've seen globally, the dollar is significantly strengthened, actually substantially strengthened in 2022. The dollar is, the king asset, is the major currency, and it has been the investor's best friend throughout this year. We've seen the best year for the dollar, since the start of this century, this turn of the millennium. At the same time, globally, we are suffering because of this. Not just gold is suffering. I'm in Egypt. I've spoken to some of the locals. Firstly, I'm very happy to be here. It's like my first time in Egypt, so it's a pleasure. And I'm being asked, from the media networks and so on, why is the Egyptian pound weak? As you can tell, I have a London accent. I come from the UK. Unfortunately, the British pound is weak. The euro is weak. Everything is weak because of what's happening with the dollar this year. Another question that I might have, and some of you might be thinking, like many in the global markets, is, can gold benefit? Can gold do better, considering all of the risks that we have in the world? Potentially, yes. At the same time, I would say at Alpari that these unfortunate global events that are taking place, there is no clarity yet of whether they're going to be resolved or not. Do we have a resolution? Is there a solution to change the environment? None of us can obviously predict politics. I'm not expecting us to be able to do that, and we definitely cannot do that. But the risks are that the situation is still going to be worse before it can get better. We don't see a solution. The unfortunate conflict is continuing. We're seeing escalations of anything. And this suggests that we're going to continue to see a very fragile global economic environment. Because of this, I am cautious on gold. I think many in the financial markets think that the dollar is going to weaken heading into 2023. It's ambitious thinking, it's wishful thinking. We all want this, but it's unfortunately unlikely to happen until we see a change in market sentiment, and we don't see this change. I'm sure in the crowd today we have a lot of Mohamed Salah fans. Yes, a lot of supporters of Liverpool. There we go, a few waves. How do I describe this? The US dollar is like Manchester City with Erling Haaland. Manchester City is already unbeatable. I'm a Man United fan. I'm not very happy about the situation. But Manchester City is very strong. With Erling Haaland, they become even stronger. Erling Haaland and Manchester City are the US dollar. Until we see an opportunity for them to weaken, we cannot see that the dollar is going to weaken because of the environment. The situation remains the same. So, the current economic crisis that we're facing is much different to what we saw in 2007, the global financial crisis at that time. If we look at the bottom of our chart just here, we can see that gold, obviously performed incredibly during the global financial crisis. As we can see later on, gold reached its all-time high and so forth. And the question is always, look, we're in another crisis, guys. We're going to be in another financial crisis. What's going to happen to gold price? Can history repeat itself? My assessment is that what we're dealing with now is completely different to what we were dealing with before. Central banks worldwide are having to raise interest rates. During the global financial crisis, they were having to cut interest rates. Very positive for gold at that time. But we do not see this situation repeating itself in 2022 and so forth. That's why I would be more cautious towards gold. I'm sure many would like to be potential buyers. Many would like to see me be very optimistic on gold. I'm not saying it's impossible, but at the same point, it is difficult until the fortunes and basically the feel-good sentiment towards the dollar changes, and we cannot see that change. What might potentially cause that change? A resolution to the very unfortunate conflicts around Ukraine, less geopolitical risks, and better diplomatic relations globally. We are in a fragile time. At the moment, we're not seeing those solutions. So that's the first thing that could weaken the US dollar, providing opportunities for global asset classes. Let's see if that happens. Second thing is many in the markets are talking about the Federal Reserve, the US Central Bank, that the US Central Bank might need to cut interest rates in 2023. It's ambitious. This is a situation that the Federal Reserve and global central banks, global governments are not able to control. This is a completely different environment. Like what we're dealing with now is a generational change in market. I believe we're all pretty, haven't seen something like this in our lifetime. I think that unless you are really trading and investing in the late 1970s and the early so forth, you haven't seen this kind of change in sentiment. I don't see this changing either. I think we're still going to live in very generationally difficult and changing times. And if the Fed were going to cut interest rates, okay, if US central bank rates go down, we could see a weaker US dollar, we could be more positive on gold. It's all could be, and ifs. Again, this environment is out of government's control and it's out of central bank's controls. I can't see the Federal Reserve being able to change its tactics unless we have a solution. We all want the solution, but we can't see that the solution's happening yet. And now we talk about gold again a little bit further. Other potential impacts and changes to gold sentiment. Firstly, the only one thing that we all need is a weaker US dollar. That's the trigger. That's the change of the attitude, that's the change in the sentiment, that's the change of the environment. Can we get the weaker US dollar? Yes, but it rests on a lot of different hypotheticals, a lot of ifs and maybes. In financial markets, we need more clarity. Nobody in this room, nobody in any room right now has that clarity. It's not isolated to Egypt. The same questions, the same concerns that you have in Egypt, you will have in other rooms. Coming from London, we have the same room. I was in Dubai just a week ago, similar concerns. Of course, that currency is pegged to the US dollar, so it's somewhat different. Nonetheless, there's still multiple concerns, no matter where we are in the world, about where the global economy is heading. So this chart on our screen right now just shows us the dollar index. The improvements in sentiment for the dollar index, as we can see at the end of our chart, we see the price of the dollar index has gone up dramatically. We haven't seen a change like this for the US dollar since the early 2000s. This is a 2-decade move for the US dollar. And again, until we see the situation changing in the environment, it's difficult to expect this trend to change also. Perhaps the pace will slow down, but the direction, I'm not so sure. Okay, here comes my currency, the British pound, and everything that's happened over the past month. I can't explain the situation in London right now. I can't explain what's happening with UK economy. I can't explain what's happening with UK politics. Typically, if the UK currency continues to decline, I'd be more than happy to stay with you guys in Egypt. I like it here. I like the food. I like the environment. I like the culture. If you guys would be more than willing to keep me in Egypt, I'm more than happy to stay here for a while. But sadly, at the moment, I do need to go back to London. And the situation here is very unfortunate. And the reality is that the situation in London, the situation in the UK economy is going to be worse before it gets better. I will just answer some questions at the end. So, what do we see? The pound has traded with intense sensitivity over the past couple of weeks and the past couple of months. That sensitivity is likely to continue. We've seen the political changes, we've seen other things that have changed in the UK landscape. The UK economy is much more sensitive to the unfortunate events in Ukraine than has still been priced into the financial markets. At the same time, the Bank of England will need to be much more aggressive. So we can actually look for potential opportunities to see further pound weakness. For those soccer fans in the room, I said I'm a Manchester United fan. I love Manchester United. Manchester United is an underperforming team. It's not performing to its potential. The British pound is not performing to its potential either. If I can resonate it to currencies, the British pound would be Manchester United right now. Until Manchester United begin winning again, and I've been waiting a very long time, we are not going to see a change. It's going to be the same for the British pound, unfortunately. So what do we see in technical analysis? Firstly, for those potential traders in the room, you might be asked what you need more, fundamental or technical? It's both. It is always both. I've been doing this now for more than a decade, and the best advice I can give you is that you need to know fundamental analysis, you need to know technical analysis. Third advice, and the best advice, is that price never lies. What happens on the price is the facts. Whether we are successful, whether we are unsuccessful in our investments, price is the dictator. Price is the one that's in charge. And we cannot control the price. We can just hope that we have some, good fortune are on the right side of the wave. So what do we see in the British pound now? Obviously, since we had the dramatic falls late September, we've had record falls in the British pound. The currency has stabilized somewhat. This is the key word. The British pound is stabilizing. I do not see that its fortunes are changing. It's just recovering from what has been a very dramatic decline. The euro, more history of 2022. The euro has finally fallen below 1-to-1 in the US dollar, a move that we've been waiting for in financial markets since 2015. It's finally happened. Now, the euro is certainly historically undervalued. Historically, the euro is a very interesting opportunity. However, European economy is very sensitive to what's happening in Eastern Europe right now. And for any of us in the room that also like Game of Thrones, the most famous metaphor from that show is that winter is coming. Winter is coming to Europe. We have not seen the impacts of the conflict yet. As it gets colder in winter, we're going to see that homes need heating, homes need more oil, and homes need more support, and whether that support's going to be there. I have friends that have been warned throughout Europe about potential changes to electricity accessibility throughout the winter months. We're not in winter yet. So this is why I would say that we should still be prepared for the euro to be weaker as well. Yes, if the euro appreciates, it's going to change global market fortunes. I'm not going to deny that. But the situation is still very fragile. So as we see on our euro-dollar chart, we have the euro-dollar monthly time frame. And as we can see, the moves that we're seeing in the euro, we haven't seen for 20 years. In fact, we need to remember, the euro is a new currency. It was only introduced physically in the early 2000s. So what we see now in the euro weakness and the level of the euro, we in fact have not seen since that currency was introduced. So we see historical changes in the euro now. And my expectations for the euro are going to be similar to gold. Cautious. We need to see a change in the environment. We need to see a solution. If we see a solution, we have what is a very, very appetizing opportunity, but we need to see a change. Of course, let's not forget this one tip. The dollar index, the USD index, the US dollar, nearly 60% of that index is euro. Remember that secret tip. So, if we do see the dollar weaken, and weaken substantially, this is a very strong relationship with the euro. So that's why we can look for potential opportunities. Of course, you're more than welcome to download the Alpari platform and you can get access to these charts also. Now, the euro trend. Clearly, the euro dollar has been on a downtrend for a long time. I actually think that we might have a risk of the euro dollar entering another downtrend yet. I'm not convinced the selling has finished. And this will especially be the case should we see escalations in these unfortunate political conflicts that are taking place. Who likes the Japanese yen? Any interest in the Japanese yen in the room? I see a few hands. Okay, the Japanese yen. What's happened with the Bank of Japan? What's happened with the Japanese yen? It's something that the government has wanted for much more than a decade. They have been pleading for yen weakness, like you would not believe. They have printed so much money, they have changed policy so many times in order to encourage yen weakness. But we haven't got it until this situation. What's happening with the Japanese yen now is something that we haven't seen for historic reasons. We have not seen the yen has weakened by more than 20% in 2022. So the question is now, what can the Bank of Japan do to help the yen? What can they do to support the yen? And for this, what we can see and maybe look for is intervention from the Bank of Japan. But intervention can be short-term until we have the change in environment. That's the key ingredient here, the change in environment. We don't see it. We can't be confident it's going to happen. We can hope, but seen as a different thing. So, on our dollar yen chart, as we can see, the dollar yen, the USD JPY, we see a substantially uptrend. We actually see the opposite picture to what we've seen with the euro dollar. Now, what potential opportunities we can see in the Japanese yen is that as we approach 150, the Bank of Japan are likely to be encouraged to buy yen. But again, what I would say with the Bank of Japan and intervention is that until the trend changes, and that's the attitude towards the dollar, any interventions are likely to have a short-term impact on price. Okay, Hassan? So that was a pleasure for me to speak in Cairo today. I'm really happy. I'm really pleased to be here. It's been like a great opportunity to stay. I would love to stay longer. And now Hassan's just going to very politely translate the conclusions of this presentation. And if you have any questions, please keep your hands up. I'm more than happy to stay around and answer your questions. And Hassan will just translate them for you in case you want to ask your questions in Arabic.
شكرا جزيلا لاصغائكم. اوكي، لو في اسئله حضراتكم كنتوا تفضلوا دلوقتي. حضرتك تفضل لو بالعربي او بالانجلش. اوكي، انجلش. Yeah.
If UK didn't leave the European Union, would be the situation better than now?
Yeah, after speaking to Arabic.
I can say it in Arabic. لو ما كانتش بريطانيا سابت الاتحاد الأوروبي كان الوضع الاقتصادي يبقى أفضل في بريطانيا.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure to be in Cairo. Really, I'm really flattered and I'm really happy to be here. So, there is the theory that all roads lead to Brexit. That Brexit was the creator of the UK issues. And I can see some validation to this theory, but I would describe the UK situation right now as a piece of cake. I love cake, as you can clearly see. However, Brexit is just one slice of that cake. There's other slices that have contributed towards the very difficult UK political situation. We have Brexit, the pandemic, the amount of money that the government has borrowed because of the pandemic, and other economic issues. However, I do agree that Brexit is a very large slice of that cake, and whether we like Brexit or not, certainly the UK has had more difficult times since Brexit and since that decision, which I will never forget. And maybe the situation now would not be as fragile as what it is.
اغلب الناس بتظن ان البريكسيت كان هو السبب في المشاكل في المملكه المتحده، واي نعم هو جزء من المشاكل لكن هو مش القصه الكامله. الاسباب الثانيه كانت البانديميك، اقتراض الفلوس او طباعه الفلوس برضو في المملكه المتحده، دي كانت برضو الاسباب الثانيه للمشاكل اللي بتحصل دلوقتي في المملكه المتحده.
Shukran, thank you for the question. Do we have any more questions? No question is a stupid question. Really ask anything away. Okay, another one?
So as you said, can we say it as a final word? Do you recommend investing in gold? Or as the economists or the people in finance say, you have to put at least 30% of your investment just in gold?
حضرتك هل شايف انه ممكن الاستثمار برضه بالذهب بيبقى اوبشن كويس، او لو ممكن مثلا 30% من الانفستمنت فاند يبقى بالذهب؟
Amazing topic. So, of course, it is important to spread your risk, to diversify your risk, which is why we see a large interest in multi-asset investments. Alpari also offer multiple assets, as you can see from the presentation. But how much to identify into your portfolio will also depend on your risk. Of course, some might prefer to have, let's say, 50% in gold, 10% in euro, 10% in pound. It depends on you. But of course, investments are risky. Alpari cares about trader education. Everything that I've just said with all the metaphors is to help familiarize understanding of the importance of education and understanding what are complicated market investments. So my suggestion, not from an investment advice, is yes, it's very beneficial to diversify your risk unless you just have interest in that particular asset.
طبعا الاستثمار بالذهب خيار ممتاز جدا. الافضل برضو تنويع المحفظه الاستثماريه. ممكن نخلي نسبه في الذهب ونسبه في اصول تانية، اللي هو الاستثمار في الاصول المتعدده، والاوبشن ده طبعا متاح مع شركه الباري.
Any other questions? Anything at all?
Can I say another question?
Sure.
Okay. Because economics is my specialty, my profession. So, what's your vision about the Egyptian economy?
ممكن تقول لنا رؤيتك عن الاقتصاد المصري؟
Difficult times, and it's not isolated to just Egypt. Of course, some of the challenges in Egypt is because, unfortunately, as an emerging economy, you're coming from a low base.
Yes.
So there's already unfortunate suffering in Egypt. I'm not going to deny that. I think any economist knows that in emerging markets, emerging countries, you still have social and economic issues.
الفترة دي طبعا صعبة مش بس على الاقتصاد المصري، وبرضه بحكم الاقتصاد المصري اقتصاد صاعد، فبرضه المشاكل بتبقى أكبر شوية.
Now, regrettably, because of the very difficult global environment, this situation will be worse. And that part is not isolated to just Egypt. Yeah. Really, that's a global trend. But of course, you're feeling the impact in Egypt, like other countries are feeling a similar impact.
بسبب الفترة الاقتصادية الصعبة، الوضع الاقتصادي هيبقى صعب مش بس على مصر، برضه في المنطقة الاقتصادية ككل.
Really, on a personal level, I love being in Egypt. I'm really happy to be here, and I would love to come again in the future. And thank you all in the audience for being here. Shukran, and thank you for your patience. We have one more question, but I hope to see you all again. This just gentleman there in the Navy.
Do you think that the pandemic and the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine is the only reasons for the economic problems, or there is other problems?
هل حضرتك شايف إنه البانديميك والحرب الروسية الأوكرانية هي أسباب الوحيدة أو في أسباب تانية؟
They are both major contributors. I can still not say that COVID is over economically. Businesses are still continuing to suffer. And the timing of the Ukraine and Russia events is like a double blow, like another knockout on top of what has already been, a economic body that's been punched.
طبعا الاسباب اللي حضرتك ذكرتها اسباب مهمه جدا، هي من احد الاسباب بالمشاكل الاقتصاديه اللي بتحصل، لكنها مش الاسباب الوحيده. اثر البانديميك اقتصاديا لسه ما انتهاش، وبرضه الحرب الروسيه الاوكرانيه جت لحتى فاقمت الوضع سوءا.
And anything else? That's it? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Masalam, Cairo. Assalamu alaikum. Shukran. And inshallah, I see you soon, okay?
لا طبعا مش محتاج ترجمه يعني. السلام عليكم.